So this video will talk all about the standard form of a parabola and all the different ways that we can use it. So what you see right here is the general equation of standard form of a parabola. So you can see that this number here is always going to be a multiple of 4, or at least you'll have to divide by 4 to figure out what that p value is. Because we have this h and k being subtracted in the equation, when we put that together, both of their signs will change, and this will actually give us our vertex. Okay, so if you take a look at the picture, you can see the vertex is where you would expect it to be. It's right at the turning point of the parabola with the axis of symmetry cutting right through it. And then this amount that's between what's called the focus and the vertex, or the focus and what we call the directrix, that right there is P. So whatever that distance is from the vertex to that line that we call the directrix, or the vertex to that dot we call the focus, that's how much P is. So that's why that's in that equation. So that means given the equation or given the graph, we should be able to come up with all of these things. So let's go through a couple of examples. Okay, so here they've given me a picture of a parabola, and then we're supposed to come up with the equation in standard form. So the very first thing I want to identify is my vertex. So I'm using this grid that's given here. It looks like that's negative 4, 2. So my vertex is negative 4, comma 2. The next thing I really want to know is the p-value. So luckily they've sketched in the directrix, so I really just want to count how far it goes. 1, 2, 3. So the directrix is 3 units above the vertex, so that means my p-value is 3. The only other thing I have to think about is actually that this parabola is upside down. It doesn't look right side up like the one we just looked at, so that means that that number that sits in front of the parabola is going to have to be negative. So I'm going to make a little note that this parabola opens down. Okay, so now I'm going to put my pieces together. So we always put the y on the left, and remember I'm changing the sign of the coordinates. So since the y value of my vertex is 2, I'm making it negative 2. Since I have a negative 4 as my x value, I'm changing it to a positive, and that's always squared. And finally, I need that number that sits in front, and I get that by now multiplying my p-value by 4, because this number is always 4p. And the only other thing I need is I have to give it a negative, and that's again because my parabola is upside down. So anytime I have an upside down parabola, it's not necessarily that the p-value is negative, it's just we have a negative there to indicate the flipping over of that graph. So this would be my equation in standard form. Okay, let's look at a different scenario. Here I'm giving you an equation, and I want you to come up with all of the pieces. So, okay, the first thing I probably want to do is come up with the vertex. So if I look at this equation, remember that the x value has to come first. Well, since there's nobody with x, technically this is the same as if it just had said x plus 0 squared. So that means the x coordinate is just 0. I look at the y. Since there's a negative 1 with it, that means my y coordinate is positive 1. Okay, so it might be helpful now. I put a grid here. I think you might want to plot that and see where it lands. Okay, so there's my vertex. Now this number 12 is really important. So if that's 12, I want to divide it by 4 to get my p-value, and that's actually going to give me 3, same as that last example. So that means I can now sketch in my focus and my directrix by counting. So 1, 2, 3 up, I'm going to have something going on right there and right here. So the only other thing you need to know is, okay, since that 12 is positive, this parabola should open up. And that's important because that means the directrix should be below the vertex. So that means my directrix is right here at y equals negative 2. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Just abbreviate it. And my focus will be the one that's above the vertex. So that would be at the point 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have a focus of 0, 4, a directrix of y equals negative 2, and a vertex of 0, 1. So again, having that grid there really helped because I could actually put the vertex on there and count so that it was able to figure out where everything was. Okay, one more example. So this time I give you some information about the parabola, but we don't know its equation and we don't know what the graph looks like. So again, I think a grid would be really helpful. So I'm going to first go ahead and plot my focus. Negative 3, 2 would be right around here. Okay, my directrix is y equals 10. Okay, that's all the way at the top up here. So I want to figure out my p-value because then I should be able to figure out where the vertex is. So remember that the vertex should be exactly in between these two. So it looks like if you were to count from 2 up to 10 is 8 units total, which means that p is half of that. So my p-value is 4. And that means I should be able to put in my vertex. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I could count 4 up from the focus, or I could count 4 down from the directrix. It wouldn't matter. Okay, so now I have my vertex, which is going to help me put my equation together. Same x-coordinate as the focus, which it'll always have. So -3, 6 is my vertex. The other thing I want to notice is that since my directrix is above my vertex, this is going to open down. Okay, so that means I have everything I need. So let's go ahead and put in our coordinates. So since I have a +6 as my y, this is going to be y -6. I have a -3 as my x, so when I put it into the equation, it's x plus 3, and that's always squared. Finally, to get the number that sits in front, I want to take my p-value and multiply it by 4. And since I'm opening down, I need to tack on that negative sign. So this is my final answer. And again, you can see that using the grid to sort of map everything out really is helpful in coming up with everything that you need.